the Gandhi chain of bookstores, which are everywhere in Mexico.
I'm excited to go to one. I actually have not been to the cities really, but I would love to make it to explore. Now I have a good reason to go, right?
Yeah, and these bookstores are everywhere. They're the most important bookstores in Mexico. So you're in good hands, and this is very good promotion for your book.
Well, gracias. I really appreciate it. It's still kind of surreal looking through it in Spanish because it came out in English a couple of years ago during COVID. So it's been interesting. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I like very much the subtitle, which is pursuing passion as a business. I like that concept very much. I think it's very easily said and harder to get it done. Tell me a little bit about how did you turn your passion into a business?
Yeah, well, I think I was lucky with my upbringing and just the perspective on the world that I was shown at a very early age, which Mexico culturally also showed me that there's many possibilities and different ways to live your life. And so I was very empowered at an early age to follow my heart. For example, my parents, to go on family vacation, we climbed the Pico de Orizaba. That was when I was in high school, and it was just anything was possible. And so when I went to college, I had that mindset of, okay, what do I want to do? And you're right, it can be difficult to follow your passion because I think it's a very romantic notion. It's, oh, rainbows and butterflies, of course, starting a lodge in the jungle, that sounds fun and simple. But I think I was well aware that it wasn't going to be easy. Just like climbing one of the volcanoes, you think, oh, I'm going to stand on the top and it's going to be great, but it's a long, challenging road to get there. And so I feel like I was well prepared for the journey, and it's one of the reasons I wrote my book, is to support people with not only visualizing and hatching the idea for their business, but also keeping going so that you don't just take the first steps, but you can persevere and you get tough and you keep going.
Yeah, well, congratulations for persevering and achieving your goals.
Thank you, yeah.
And who would you say is the ideal reader of Emprendedores Salvajes?
Buena pregunta. There's not one demographic. And I realized this, again, because one of the reasons I wrote my book is I host guests from all over the world at my lodge in San Pancho, which you'll have to come visit sometime.
Yeah.
And really, they're all ages, they're all walks of life. And the question I kept getting asked is, how did you create this place? And they would share, I have this wild idea, how do I make it happen? And so I think it's not one specific demographic, it's more a mindset of, I have this idea, and sitting at a desk, maybe you have a full-time job and maybe you're not feeling fulfilled. And so it's that inkling of inspiration. And so it could be a college, somebody in college and university. It could be somebody with a full-time job. I was just talking to somebody that works with Charles Schwab, which is a big bank in the US. And he has this idea for this kid's toy that he's working on the design on the side. And so that's one way. And then also, people that are retired that have hobbies that maybe they want to turn into a business. In Mexico, people never retire, right? They always have something going on.
Yes.
It's the land of entrepreneurs.
You're right. And what would you say your balance is since you began building this lodge with your family in the jungle until now? What is your balance?
You mean balance work-life personally?
Yes.
That's been a challenging one. I think I have been a very type A, very motivated person. And so when we first opened the lodge, as you probably read in the book, I had no social life. I just focused on getting the lodge going, and I also didn't take care of myself. I lived in a tent, I had no personal space, and that wasn't sustainable. I did that for 5 years to get my business going, and then I had to take a step back and take care of me. So I've learned a lot about balance, and now as a mom, I'm still learning it, working on it. I have a 2-year-old, and so finding the division of, taking time for self-care. And there's a whole chapter in there about taking care of yourself, because
Yes.
if you don't, there's no way that you can continue.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
of
really
course.
important, right?
Yes. I want to ask you about the clash of cultures between Mexico and the US, and how was your first relation to Mexico? And of course, I guess right now it's quite good, but
Yeah.
was it easy? How was the clash?
It was really hard, in honest, de verdad, muy difícil. And I was really shy when I was in college. I spoke some Spanish, and my Spanish is still más o menos, but I was really shy to use it. And even though I'd grown up going to Mexico, I didn't fully understand the culture, the mañana culture, how things work a little more slowly.
Yes. Yeah, I love that
So,
chapter.
yeah,
That part.
it's one of my favorite chapters too, because Mexico really changed me on a very deep level in a wonderful way. And I have so much gratitude for your culture and your country for helping me see a different way. Because in my mind, there was one way, which is productivity, and you have a timeline, and you're organized, and you're rigid, and you get it done, which I think a lot of Americans kind of have that mindset. And then
Yeah.
you go to Mexico, and the priorities are different, in that, you get your work done, but it's about family and play and quality of life. And, that's a very broad generalization. But for me,
Yeah.
that's really what struck a chord in San Pancho is, la vida buena. And just being present and enjoying the journey instead of just being focused on the destination.
Could you tell me what ahorita means?
Oh, see. Maybe today, maybe next year. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got it. You got it solved.
En un ratito. Yeah.
Another part of your book, well, the whole of your book that I'm very interested in is relationships with nature and the jungle, and how to take care of it while living there, not destroying it, but the other way around. What is your philosophy towards the jungle and nature in this book?
Yeah, so I embrace very much the concept of biomimicry, which is using models and the systems of nature to guide us in business and personally. And there's so much to learn. The learning never ends. The natural world has so much wisdom to teach us if we're just paying attention. And so many of us are so removed, looking at the screens all day. We're not in tune to the rhythms of the natural world. And so one example I like to share that I think is very easily accessible in the world of wild entrepreneurs is, the poco a poco mentality, which is very Mexican as well. And I think, you think of the biggest trees, what are some big trees? The higueras. I don't know if you have those in Mexico City, but they start as this tiny little seed. And a lot of times in the jungle, they grow down the palm trees, these strangler figs.
Yes.
And it takes, decades and decades for them to turn into this big, strong tree that's really resilient and in harmony with the world around it. And that's the model that I've tried to apply to everything that we're doing in the jungle is poco a poco, take it slow, figure out what makes sense for the natural world, for the community, for our family. And you think of all those different pieces and how they fit together. And so to not go too quickly, I think just to be mindful and go slow helps with everything.
Yeah, don't rush it. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Your book is also a choir of voices of other wildpreneurs, let's say.
Yeah.
You turned like into a journalist interviewing people. How was that part of getting to know other examples of getting it done?
I love it. I felt like I didn't want it to just be my story. I know my story. I was curious to hear from others and their experience. And there's a lot of overlap, but also there's a lot of unique ways to do it. There's not one model for being a wildpreneur. We have so much to learn from each other. So I was excited to create this community of support. And that's why I'm so excited now in Spanish, because, you know,
Yeah.
the community of support that I really started out with was San Pancho, and they believed in me, and, you know, it could be a lonely road.
Yeah.
And so that's why I started interviewing them, and you'll see there's many in Sayulita and San Pancho. And so it's brought them together, and now I'm excited for that community to become even broader.
Yeah. Although I told you I love San Pancho, and I do, I feel it's almost dying of success. It's so full of people and tourism and about
Yeah.
to implode in a way. How have you
Yeah.
seen San Pancho change from those years until now?
You know, that's a great question, because when you think back to when I arrived, I was 22. I'm now 38, almost in a couple days. And I was really one of the only American gringas that was young walking down the street, which for me, I was very uncomfortable, you know, very shy. And that's obviously very different now. There's not a lot of parking. There's a lot of construction. There's a hotel on every corner. And so in some ways, it's nice to see the town thrive. And through COVID, you know, there wasn't too much suffering. Everyone supported each other. But at the same time, you're right. I think it's the dying of success. That's an interesting term. And you've seen what happened in Sayulita. You know, there's been massive issues over there. And we have
Yeah.
a very strong community center in San Pancho, Entre Amigos, which has worked really hard to try to, you know, be responsible and implement sustainable practices. But it's a battle, you know, and I don't know what's going to happen in the coming years, especially as more people come to San Pancho. With COVID, we
Yeah.
actually saw more tourism from Mexicans than you know, it was amazing. So I don't have an answer to that, you know, and I can only watch and try to do my part to support in a positive way with holistic businesses and supporting the locals that I know they're in it because they believe in what they're doing and not just because they want to make money.
Yeah, of course. I
But
have
it's
seen it
different.
in, you know, the size of Sayulita, which is huge. Well, you could begin even with Puerto Vallarta, then Sayulita, then San
Totally.
Pancho.
Mm-hmm.
And now there, for example, places like Lo de Marcos, which you can see could
Yeah.
turn into a new San Pancho.
Yeah.
But if you could give a word of advice to a smaller town which is developing, and to the wildpreneurs that will begin there, what would you tell them?
Oh, good question. You know, I immediately think of Entre Amigos, and that started at the same time that my lodge started. And it really was the foundation of the community with a recycling program and bringing expats who came down with a lot of money. It gave them a place to put their money that would go back into the community and projects to support. So I think being mindful of our footprint, each of us, you know, as wildpreneurs, how do we give back to the community and do what we can to be part of the solution and not the problem?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Well,
an
tell me.
idealistic kind of thing, you
No,
know?
I love it. I think it's doable.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about your book, because it appeared in English in, I think, in the midst of the virus, or maybe how has it been for you?
So it was an interesting time because I had my son a couple of months before my book came out, and then I went on book tour with a 2-month-old, and my book tour started in Seattle where COVID hit.
Oh God.
So I launched at the REI flagship store in Seattle the weekend that COVID hit. And, you know, I had this whole book tour planned out, and it obviously, well, it fizzled. A lot of Zoom calls and, you know, virtual, which as a wildpreneur has been a little tricky because it's more about personal connection. And, you know, it's nice to connect with you this way, but it would have been nice to do all those book talks. I think I got in about 5 or 10, so I did a few.
Okay.
And ultimately, it's been really exciting because my book fell into the hands of a startup that's all about passion-based travel. And so I'm now communicating with lodges like my own all over the world and talking to them about their experiences. So I can't complain too much. You know, things sometimes happen in a non-linear way. And I think COVID has had a lot of silver linings.
Yeah.
And I also got to be just a mom for a while, you know?
Of course. I mean, he's 2 years old right now, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
A long way to go still.
Oh, it's an adventure every day. Yeah.
Yeah. So now your book's in Spanish. What are your expectations for this translation? What are you expecting Mexican readers to, of course, be interested, like future wildpreneurs, but also travelers? What do you expect from your book in Spanish?
I'm open-minded. I don't have, I'm not attached. I'm really excited to have it fall into the right hands. I think the people that need it really love it. And they might not even know that they need it, so it's an interesting book in that sense. And I've written it so it's not just another business book. I think I have a talk with one of the universities in the AFA that's a business program. And I wonder if it will resonate with them, because an MBA and a standard business, it's a little different. And Wildpreneurs is about listening to your heart and what makes you come alive and, following a little bit out of the box. And I think many Mexicans already think that way. You think of walking down the street, I don't know, in the AFA and the little communities, but there's really interesting and unique businesses all over the place. And so there's many people already who are wildpreneurs. So it's going to be interesting to see how it resonates with Mexicans. And a lot of expats that have moved to Mexico too. I think this will be a good book for them to read to practice their Spanish.
Yeah, of course. It also works as a guide, as a Spanish guide.
I need to read it in Spanish.
So I know the book is full of messages and that it's a guide, but if you had to give, this is a hard question, one message to sum it up for the future wildpreneur, what would that be?
Okay, I've actually got a good answer to this, but it has 3 parts. Can I have 3 parts?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so I call it the 3 W's. And the first one is to make a wish. And that is, when you wish on a birthday candle, you imagine, you set your intention, and that's the first step. That's number 1, is to take the first step. And a lot of times it's visualizing the journey, which I did on the Baja actually in first chapter. I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And so visualizing is number 1. So make a wish. And then number 2 is what I call the wildpreneur approach, which is to get dirty and get gritty and dive in, and embrace the Mexican culture of poco a poco and be adaptable and persevere, which is, I think so important because it's not an easy journey. So you have to get gritty. And then the third is wisdom, which is what we're talking about with being mindful of community and taking a kind of holistic approach, which is about love ultimately, and considering the community of wildpreneurs and how we work together to be doing good for our world as, as people, as natural world, all of it.
It's a very good answer.
The 3 W's, right? I got a W.
So it's the wish, the wildpreneur, and wisdom?
That's right.
Okay. Well, I think that sums it up. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I wish you the best
welcome.
of lucks, the best of lucks to your book.
Muchas gracias. I appreciate it. And please come and say hi in San Pancho someday.
I will, I promise, because I love the whole Nayarit region and I'm always back there, so I will visit.
Muy bien, mucho gusto. Thank you so much.
Igualmente, muchísimas gracias.
Adiós.
Chao, chao.